Hello everybody, this is Professor Jeff Wilkerson at Luther College, once again bringing you something to look for in the night sky. I hope your holidays have gone very well and that you're ready to start 2021. So this is for the week of January 4th, 2021. So we'll start the new year with a little more geometry. The last few weeks we've talked about geometry a little bit, and it's been so much fun. I just can't help it. We got to talk about geometry a little bit more. Really, this is the heart of a lot of what we do. I think that maybe the biggest surprise for students who take the general astronomy class to satisfy their natural world lab requirement is just how much the course is built on geometrical thinking. Picturing what the geometry of the solar system or the geometry of the galaxy or the geometry of whatever it is that we're looking at, the celestial sphere, the inner dome of the sky, how much the geometry determines what we see, how we can map what we see onto the geometry of what's happening. And it's a challenging way to think, especially when we start doing that three-dimensionally in the galaxy or with tilts of orbits or something like that. But we're going to do just a little bit more of it for you here. And we're going to suggest that you start watching Venus over the next week and just keep watching Venus as long as you can. Right now, as I'm recording this, a little bit in advance of when I'm going to post it, I'm seeing Venus in the morning quite nicely as the brightest object in the glow of the sunrise in the east, and I'm observing it often about 7 o'clock in the morning, my time, to 7:15. So I'm going to recommend that's about when you go out, sometime between 6:45 in the morning and 7:15 in the morning. To start to observe it. And then once you see it, you can make your judgment about when you want to see it. Now, it's getting pretty close to the sun, and it's going to disappear down into that sun and going to disappear behind the sun. So here's the geometry that we're looking at. If Earth is here and Venus is here, and we're going to have things orbiting this direction, and that means Earth is rotating that direction too. We have good prograde rotation. And so that means as we get close to sunrise, Venus appears in our sky. We're rotating over here into sunrise. Venus appears first, and then the sun appears later. We rotate 360 degrees in 24 hours. That means we rotate about 15 degrees per hour. So things move across the sky at the rate of about 15 degrees per hour. So if that angle right there that I have drawn is 15 degrees, Venus will rise 1 hour before the sun. Now, we can start to see the sun well before it rises, and the glow fills the sky and Venus becomes hard to see. So you need Venus rising well before the sun in order to be able to reliably see it, especially if you have stuff on your eastern horizon and can't see that really close down to the horizon. Binoculars will help you pick it out. Venus is bright, so you can see Venus pretty far into the glow of the sun. But start practicing that right now, because Venus is headed this direction and out of sight. And what I'm going to recommend that you do is keep watching and watch for it to appear on the other side, boom, over here in the evening sky. But that's not going to happen for quite a while. One of the reasons is this would be a relatively simple thing, and Venus would go and reappear fairly shortly, except we're chasing it around. We're keeping it from disappearing behind the sun because it's trying to get behind the sun, but we're changing that angle and keeping it from disappearing behind the sun. So it keeps it up in the morning sky longer than it would otherwise, although it is sinking fast into the horizon. When Venus was here, its greatest distance from the sun, as high as it gets in the sky. It doesn't get that high in the sky. We always have to look in the general direction of the sun to see it because it's in here. Not like Mars and Jupiter and Saturn that are out here. It's in here. When it was here, it was moving mostly directly away from us. And so it was not sinking toward the sun very quickly at all. But now it is. Now it's moving mostly across our line of sight. Again, we're trying to keep that from happening by orbiting around this direction. But it's moving mostly across this way, and it's closing that gap on the sun pretty quickly. So get out there now and watch it this week of January 4th. But see how long you can watch. How good a job can we do of keeping it from disappearing into the sun? See if you can watch it all the way through January and into February. It'll be about the second week of February when it is actually up 1 hour. That gap right here, that angle is that 1 hour that we talked about. So it will rise 1 hour before the sun sometime around the second week of January. So what's going to happen is as second week of February, excuse me. So we get around that second week of February. So watch this getting closer, closer, closer. What's going to happen? Remember Jupiter and Saturn and the great conjunction and all the excitement that was a few weeks ago about that? Jupiter and Saturn are going to pop out into the morning sky. You watch that in the evening sky as they were sinking really close to the horizon. They're going to pop out into the morning sky in March as well. And it'll be hard to see, be close to the sun, I think. But if you got a good eastern horizon, the end of the first week of March, Mercury's going to be there too. The end of the first week of March, Mercury's going to make a great conjunction, a great pairing with Jupiter. So watch for Jupiter and Saturn to join these in the morning sky as we get into March. Although, again, Venus is getting harder and harder and harder and harder to see as it moves that direction. It's going to be late March by the time that Venus actually crosses the sun and pops out into the evening sky, but it's going to take it a long time. It's going to be May before Venus is far enough over on this side of the sun that it will be setting an hour after the sun in the evening sky. We'll be starting to get up high in the evening sky. So once we get into late spring, get into May, and on into June, into what we think of as summertime. Once we get into that time, we'll start to see Venus as a good object in the evening sky, and you can picture this geometry of what's happened. Venus has orbited around behind the sun. We've raced around to try to keep it from doing so, but it's faster than we are. It's closer to the sun. It's moving faster. It has less orbital distance to cover. All of these things allow it to come around and lap us. And so it's popped out into the evening sky at that point, and you'll be able to take a look at it. So keep these things in mind. Watch Venus this week. Watch it getting closer and closer to the sun, and appreciate how quickly it's sinking into the sky. Appreciate how much more quickly it would be sinking into the sun if we weren't orbiting to try to keep it from doing that. And then watch it disappear. But on the way out, watch for Jupiter and Saturn to appear in the evening sky, and get a good pair of binoculars in March, and maybe you can pick Mercury out right next to the end of that first week of March. Pick Mercury out right next to Jupiter and watch Jupiter and Mercury getting higher and higher and higher in the morning sky, and then wait for the sun, wait for the Venus to clear the sun, and see when the first time you can see Venus is. Will you be able to see it in April? Give it a try. Work to see it popping out that direction, and see if you can start to see it in the evening sky as it appears and heads into spring. So that's what I've got for you this week. Watch Venus. Think about it getting closer to the sun. Watch it getting closer to the sun. Keep your eyes out for Jupiter and Saturn to make their appearance in the morning sky after having watched them in conjunction here in the evening sky recently. And I hope your skies are clear and your days are good, and we'll have more for you next week. Thanks, everybody.